Hey everybody, my name is BlakJak and welcome to my review of Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater HD for the PlayStation 3. Just a heads up, my version of the game comes from the Legacy Collection, which comes with every Metal Gear Solid game up until Peace Walker. Like always, there are 5 points that I believe are important to making a good video game, those being story, gameplay, visual design, audio design, and content. Without further ado, let's get into the story. If you want to skip to the character section of the video and skip any plot spoilers, go to this timestamp. Our journey begins in 1964, where our main protagonist Jack gets ready to perform the world's first Halo jump, or high altitude low opening jump. Once learning of the mission to save a man by the name of Nikolai Stefanovich Sokolov, Jack then gets bequeathed the codename Naked Snake. This operation will for now be known as the Virtuous Mission. Snake successfully sneaks through the KGB forces without a trace.
Who's that?
Snake then meets Sokolov in the back of a rundown factory. They begin their trek back to the extraction point, however, they were stopped by the KGB. Personally, I blame Sokolov for having the stealth skills of a baby panda. Oh, apparently they're clumsy as fuck. Fortunately for our hero, they get taken out of the rather flashy way by the most flamboyant member of the Ocelot unit, Major Ocelot. Unfortunately, Ocelot decided now was a good time to purr like a domesticated house cat and call all his other Gru buddies to the party. Good thing Ocelot's a show-off, because once his gun jams, Snake seizes the opportunity to beat the ever-loving shit out of like 6 guys. But since Snake is such a good guy, he gives Ocelot words of encouragement that in no way at all help shape him to be a healthy, rational member of society. Snake catches up with Sokolov, who did his best cheetah impression, and Sokolov shows Snake the weapon that he was forced to create, the Shagohod. It's just a tank that has rocket engines on it and is capable of launching nuclear missiles that can reach anywhere within the United States. Snake and Sokolov were stopped, not too long after, however, by a woman on a bridge. Who is this mysterious woman, you're asking? Oh, well that's simple, it's the boss. The woman who trained and mentored Snake for like 10 years. She happens to be carrying a Davy Crockett portable nuke launcher as a gift. The gift is for Gru Colonel, I'm going to mess this name up, Yevgeny Borisovich Volgin. That's right! The boss is defecting to the Soviet Union. The once beloved mother of the Special Forces is defecting. Snake is like, boss! And she's like, nah son, you're either with me or you're against me. And then Snake is like, boss! And she's like, nope! And severely injures him and then launches him off a rope bridge into the water below. All of that happened exactly as I described it, and it also happened after Sokolov was captured by some dude with a widow's peak that rivals Vegeta's, and a dude who can channel his inner Shino. Volgin does the unthinkable and blows up the factory Sokolov was being held captive in using his newly found gift. The Virtuous Mission ends in a failure, and Snake is forced to spend a week in the most advanced ICU in the country before he's tasked to go into the Soviet Union once again to start his new operation, Snake Eater. Snake gets his briefing from Major Zero, the same man who was on lead during the Virtuous Mission, by the way. Snake's mission is to go in, rescue Sokolov, if possible, take out the Cobra unit, destroy the Shagohod, and finally kill the boss. Once in the Soviet Union, Snake needs to make his way through the same area he was a week earlier and make it back to the same ruined facility that Sokolov was in. His task was to meet with 2 NSA codebreakers who were in the Soviet Union. Their codenames were Adam and Eva. Snake found the boss, who promptly kicked his ass and told him to go home, and then she blew up this ultra cool drone of his, which alerted the nearby guards. She then had her horse stomp on Snake's hand, as you do, and then rode off into the jungle. Once Snake masterfully got through the area unseen.
Who's that? Who's that?
He was met the woman who saved his life. She goes by Eva. What's the password? Snake gets some rest while Eva watches over him. In the morning, Snake notices that they're surrounded by the Ocelot unit. Opening a hidden compartment on the floor, Snake masterfully takes out all 8 Ocelot members. However, Ocelot managed to get a hold of Eva after firing 6 shots. Snake then taunts Ocelot, who began shooting nothing at Snake, which allowed Eva to get loose and run over Ocelot. Sort of. Suffering another humiliating defeat at the hands of Snake, Ocelot runs and Eva tries to finish him off. But since Snake has already claimed that territory in an alternate universe, He decides that he wants to have a pacifist run, so he spares him. Eva opens the way in the most unnecessary way possible. After following Eva towards Gorky, Snake runs into Ocelot once again. They duel using guns, Snake receiving his from Eva the night before, and Ocelot having an extra revolver. The fight between the All-American and Major Neko ends up being stopped by a swarm of hornets. Ocelot was handling it pretty well, all things considered. His man, on the other hand, not so much. Snake decided, well, I survived a nuke, a fall off a bridge into water, and several ass whoopings from the boss. I could survive this jump into a gorge. So he jumps, lands feet first, and is completely unscathed. Making his way through a dark, damp cave, he meets the first member of the Cobra unit, the Pain. Snake beats him with relative ease, and then makes his way to the warehouse. He ends up spying on Colonel Volgin, the boss, Tatiana, the End, the Fear, and Sokolov. The boss warns Volgin of the demise of the Pain, and then tells the Fear to deal with the intruder. Sokolov then gets taken away. Snake makes his way towards Gorky, a secret lab facility. Eva issued Snake a scientist disguise. I forgot to mention that last part. Snake totally infiltrates without being spotted, like, at all.
Who's there?
And he meets Alexander Levinovich Granin. Granin is a drunken, salty scientist who loves his country. He admits that he would never defect on like that. No good Sokolov. As he was spilling top secret stuff to a spy, who, by the way, he knew was a spy, he mentioned his disdain towards Sokolov and his stupid tank with a rocket engine. He mentions he came up with an ingenious idea for a nuclear launcher. It's a tank, but with legs. He sent his documents to a scientist that was stateside to continue his research of Metal Gear, all because he wants revenge on his superiors for not choosing his inventions. R/pro revenge. I like it. Granin gives Snake the inside scoop of the philosopher's legacy. Snake compliments his shoes, and Granin gives Snake a key that opens the door that leads the way towards Groznygrad. On the way back to the warehouse, Snake runs into the Cobra unit member numero 2.
I am the Fear.
Who promptly shoots Snake with a poison bolt. Snake, of course, survives because plot armor, and takes out the Fear while he was enjoying a nice bite to eat. I believe it was revenge for an alternate universe where Snake dies a quarter of a half a dozen times. Anyway, Snake ends up in a large jungle where he faces off with the End. Snake plays with his enemy, making him dance a bit until he decides enough is enough, and puts the old timer out of his misery, and then proceeds to make it up a mountain pass to meet up with Eva. Eva tells Snake of a way to make it to Groznygrad, and then begins her trip back before it's too late. Snake, while looking through his binoculars, witnesses the torture of Granin via the hands of Volgin and his barrels. Granin regrettably dies and is accused of being a spy because his shoes were housing a transmitter. Volgin revealed to Ocelot that the C3 explosives were stolen. The boss lets the villainous Volgin in on the game scoreboard. Snake 3, Cobra 0, and also lets Volgin know the reason for Snake's appearance. To her, Snake is here to steal Volgin's philosopher's legacy and to kill her. Snake heads back down the mountain to the secret entrance that Eva gave him access to. There he meets the final living Cobra member, the Fury. After a long and difficult battle, if you're me that is, Snake nearly escapes the final explosion and is well on his way towards Groznygrad. Donning his scientist disguise once more, Snake tries and finds Major Ivan Radanovich Rykov. Raiden. And he steals his uniform, making it past the guards so that he can meet with Sokolov. Unfortunately for him, Sokolov is giving Tatiana a film that contains all the information for the Shagohod. Snake then lets his presence be known to Sokolov, and unfortunately Volgin appears. After a big old grapefruit grab, Volgin deems Snake's disguise, a disguise. Just then the boss appears and lays the grandest of smackdowns to all who get in her way, not only dropping Snake on his ass, but Volgin as well. Oh, and by the way, at some point during this whole thing, Sokolov gets capped in the knees. I don't know, it seemed important enough to mention. Snake then gets outboxed until he's out cold, and when he wakes up, it's pitch black. All he can hear is the torture coming from the corner of the room where Sokolov is being beaten to death. Then, it's Snake's turn to get tortured. Beaten, shocked, and berated, Snake takes it all. The boss appears and tells Volgin that it's pointless. He's not going to say a word. He was trained by her not to, after all. Volgin electrifies Snake with 10 million volt electricity that runs throughout his own body. As the torture continues, a transmitter falls from his body. The boss says she placed it on him so the Cobras could know where he was and set up ambushes for him. Vulcan demanded she showed proof that they weren't working together. He asks that she cut out his beautiful blue eyes. Tatiana tries to stop them, and Ocelot, oh, by the way, Ocelot was there too, accuses her of being the spy. So he decides to test her luck with a little game of flippy-twirly gun death, and just as he was about to shoot her, Snake takes a bullet to the eye. Satisfied with what had just occurred, Vulcan leaves. Ocelot punches Snake in the back as a "congrats on surviving torture" kind of gesture. The boss shoots Snake in the thigh with a fake death pill, and hands him a single-action army. Once she leaves, Tatiana reveals to Snake that she in fact is Eva, and tells him about the sewer exit. Snake gets carried away and put into jail. Snake, using the ability of seeing spirits, used the information he gathered from the Sorrow to escape. He did not set any alarms off and did not kill any dog or guard at any time during his escape. At all. Making his way through the sewers, he is stopped by Ocelot and some of his men. Snake pretty much was like, well, I'm God and I can survive pretty much anything, so he leaps out of the sewer pipe into the rushing water below. And then he dies, kind of. Snake is now in the River of Styx, where he meets with the ghost of the Sorrow, a deceased Cobra unit member. Snake faces demons by wading through the river and avoiding everything he killed up until that point, and he reached the body of the Sorrow, and then takes a revival pill to wake up from almost drowning. I guess that's the point where Snake realized this isn't a game, and he isn't a god. He was brought down to earth real fucking quick. Snake meets with Eva behind a waterfall where he gives him all his gear, and they rest a bit. Snake even tries to make a new friend with a butterfly, but since he has shitty depth perception now, he was unable to reach it. The two of them spent some time with each other. Snake heads back to Grausigrad, plants the stolen C3 explosives that were given to him by Eva on the liquid fuel tanks of the Shagohod. Unfortunately, Vulcan and Ocelot capture Eva after she planted her half of the C3 on a bridge that was part of her plan. Finally, time for Snake versus Vulcan, the boxing match of the decade. And Vulcan and Snake throw the boxing rules right out the fucking window because both of them just start shooting each other with whatever they have. Eve and Snake begin their escape, but then they're chased by Vulcan, who's driving the Shagohod. Then they blow up the bridge after dodging some guards on bikes, and the Shagohod as it's, chasing them. But it's still not over. Snake and Eva need to destroy the Shagohod after it nearly escaped the bridge collapsing under it. However, it's still not over. The machine might be stopped, but Vulcan controls it using the lightning abilities. Snake and Eva split up and together they put an end to Vulcan, who forgets to ward off lightning because by some cosmic judgment, he gets struck down by a flurry of thunderbolts. Snake and Eva still have to escape as it's not over, so the two of them ride through the jungle towards the wig, as they're being chased by motorcyclists and those flying enemies, until they get distracted by a leaking gas tank and crash into a log. Snake is just fine because why wouldn't he be? Meanwhile, Eva is gravely injured. Snake performs emergency treatments, and together they painstakingly move throughout the jungle, trying their best to avoid the patrolling guards. Once they make it to the wig, Snake goes off to the Field of Flowers to complete his last objective. After a very profound and tear-jerking speech by the boss, Snake and her clash. The boss hands the closest thing to a son she's ever had, her weapon. And Snake and Eva are on their way to Alaska, but they're rudely interrupted by Ocelot, who still wants a piece of Snake's ass. He and Snake get into a fistfight, but then decide to settle the score with a bit of luck, with one more game of Russian roulette. The winner sets off a blank. Unless you decide not to shoot. With whatever decision you pick, Ocelot does the same thing. You exchange names, and then he jumps out the plane and conjures an inner naked Snake and lands unscathed into the water. Eva and Snake spend the evening in each other's embrace, and in the morning she's no longer there, leaving behind a tape and player explaining everything to Snake. She explains the purpose for the boss's defection. She explained she was a spy working for the People's Republic of China, and she was a sleeper agent that was in a charm school, one that the boss attended as a teacher. She took the philosopher's legacy as well. She even mentioned that the real Adam and Eva were both men. The tape keeps going on as different scenes begin to play until it eventually self-destructs. Snake makes it back to DC and gets awarded the title of Big Boss. He also visits the boss's grave, dropping off flowers and her gun off, and the game ends with a tearful salute to a true patriot. Also, the end credits tell us that Ocelot was the real Adam this whole time, and that he had the true Philosopher's Legacy while China had a fake. The characters! Let's start off with the main character, Jack, codenamed Naked Snake. He's played by David Hayter, reprising his role as the main character in the series. I always enjoy David Hayter's performance. Snake is pretty naive as a character. He doesn't seem to know much about the world or what it has to offer. He's always asking questions about everything, but that's not a bad thing. It helps the audience get into what's going on in a way that feels natural. It always makes me laugh when Snake talks about guns though. He like just goes on and on and on, and that's really endearing for me. Like he has passions and beliefs. And yes, his dialogue can be very corny at times, especially since his form of asking questions is just parroting the words he doesn't understand. It becomes almost comedic to me. I also love the side conversations Snake can have if you call different people at different times. For instance, talking to Major Zero about 007, and they have a back and forth that's pretty fucking amusing. Also, I love just how much of a player Snake is, man. Like, he hits on Paramedic quite a bit, and then near the end of the game, he just deadass hangs up on her. Like, man, he's a great character. Major Zero, played by Jim Piddock, is pretty much the hint system for this game, but he has so much personality. Jim Piddock plays him rather well. I never feel uninvested in his character during cutscenes, to be honest. Like I mentioned earlier with Snake, I really enjoy talking to him and the other side characters for that matter during different parts of the game. It's always amusing to hear their thoughts on the situation or to listen to their expertise on specific matters. Whether you're talking to Sigint, played by James C. Mathis III, about weapons, or Paramedic, played by Heather Haley, I don't know, one of those, about movies and food. So, really enjoy the side characters. Sokolov, played by Brian Cummings, is an interesting character. Personally, I dislike him, and that has nothing to do with the performance though, it's more so the character himself. He's goofy, which I find funny, but it's like, how can you be so useless? Like that part when you find him and he screams and runs away is funny, but like, did you really need to do that? And I mean like scream and then be told to run away? Like, why didn't you just run away? I don't know. He also rivals Otacon on most times someone pisses themselves in a Metal Gear game. But at least Otacon did some neat shit in MGS. But we'll save that for later. At least he managed to get the film to Eva though. So there's that. Anyway, Brian Cummings played him pretty well, all things considered. Now we move on from one weirdo to another. Major Ocelot, played by Josh Keaton, is eccentric. He loves spaghetti westerns, which explains the spurs and the cowboy vibe I get with him. I love that Ocelot grows as a character in this game, and everything he becomes in Metal Gear stems directly from the first meeting of Ocelot and Snake. I love that he starts off cocky and an extreme show-off, but by the end of the game he acts as if him and Snake have this unspoken friendship almost. And in some ways they do in other games. I love the small changes he has gone through in this game though, whether it's just getting a ridiculously engraved revolver to using a phrase he got from Snake and turning it into his own catchphrase.
Pretty good.
Ocelot is definitely one of my favorites. Let's move on to the love interest, Eva, who is played by an actress using a pseudonym, Suzette Mignette. I believe that's how you pronounce it. She plays the part rather well. So well, in fact, I don't know which things Eva says are true or are lies. It's really well done with really great direction and a good script. Eva's a really good character and is done really well. Let's move on to the Corver unit. Let's go in order. The Pain is played by Greg Berger. Berger? I don't know, one of those. If the name sounds familiar, then you might know him as Hunter from the Spyro games or Grimlock from Transformers, among other things. The Pain, much like the other Cobras, doesn't really get that much screen time, so a lot of the performance are more visual with over-the-top acting. The Pain has these wonky movements when doing stuff, especially with his legs. He always seems to be doing some sort of karate-like kick before launching a Hornet attack. He's really comical, and he doesn't really overstay his welcome. The Fear is played by Michael Bell. He played quite a few characters from a bunch of things, including a few characters from Transformer, Raziel from Legacy of Kain, but the one I grew up with was Drew Pickles and Chaz Finster from the Rugrats. Now knowing that the Fear is Chucky's dad, it makes him even creepier. The Fear is genuinely creepy. Everything from his voice to his design is very off-putting. And then what makes him even more terrifying is his movements. Like, take a look at this scene.
Come into my web. It is time for you to feel the fear.
That shit was creepy and I fucking love it. The End is played by J. Grant Albrick. He's been in a few shows and video games, but hasn't had any bigger roles it seems. Other than Baldur from Bayonetta and Death Metal from No More Heroes. And Dr. Locust from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Is this gonna be an ongoing trend where actors who had parts in Nickelodeon cartoons come back and play memorable bosses? The answer is yes. The end is probably my favorite Cobra fight. He's really fun trying to sneak up on him to steal his clothes. Wait a minute. I meant to say drop his camouflage. The end is also very memorable in his appearance and actions. I mean, true, he does sleep through most of the game, but when he's ready for his battle, he springs to life. If you get close to him, he'll just up and dash out of there. That old timer sure does have good cardio though. I even love his parrot, the one that calls him grandpa all the time. Like, you know, there was a kid out there at one point in time that called him that. Like, little details like that breathe life into a piece of media, and I genuinely love it. The Fury is played by Richard Doyle. Richard Doyle has been in a bunch of stuff. Notably, he was Enoch from Ben 10, Senator Kelly from X-Men, and he played a couple of characters in Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, among other things. The Fury has the least amount of screen time. He literally appears for just his boss fight and the Sorrow. He doesn't even do much either, other than like fly around in his jetpack and shoot flames and sound all angry. The only cool thing he does is when he dies and he turns into something straight out of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Huh. Philosopher's Stone? Philosopher's Legacy? Is there some sort of connection? Who knows? The Sorrow is played by David Thomas Jr. He had quite a few roles, however none of them seem to be very notable. The Sorrow is quite frankly the best Cobra unit member. Honestly, it's just because he occasionally appears in cutscenes holding up signs. He's kind of a dick. Fucking love it. I love when you're timed due to explosives and he's just floating around counting down the time. It shit cracks me up every time, man. That's some clever fourth wall breaking going on right there. It's like the developers were like, we know we have long cutscenes. Here's a little joke. But I end up ultimately feeling really bad for him. Like, his lover gave birth to his son and then he was taken away by the philosophers. Then she had to kill him. Since the Cobras derive their names from the emotions they feel in battle, then that means he either feels saddened by killing people or just depressed that he needs to. That's pretty tragic if you think about it. He's an interesting character and I really like him a lot. Colonel Volgin is played by Neil Ross. Now, Neil Ross has been in quite a lot of stuff. Like, he's Mog from My Life as a Teenage Robot, Mirai from Ninja Gaiden, and a bunch of other shit. But Volgin is the main villain in this game. What an interesting character he is. First of all, I love just how overtly sexual he is and just like how open he is about it. He does not give a single flying fuck like who's around. He will grab another man's balls right in front of a room filled with people if he really wants to. I also like that he's superstitious. Like, the first time you meet him, he says, Kuwabara, Kuwabara. And that's apparently used to ward off being struck by lightning. It's kind of like the expression knock on wood, which would make sense for him, you know, being conductive and all. I find it funny that the one time he doesn't say it, though, is when he gets bombarded by lightning bolts. Bombarded by, like, thunderbolts, you know? It's fucking killed. He's also a huge asshole. Like, he's a very unlikable character. And that's a good thing, because I don't want to like the enemy. Especially if he's been torturing people, nuking places, and he's a sadist. And I don't mean that in a BDSM sense either. Like, he just wants power, and there's no ceiling to the amount of power he wants. And that makes him a very interesting character. The boss is played by Lori Allen. She's Pearl from SpongeBob, among other things. But this is her greatest role. Hands down. The boss makes this game for me. She steals the show every time she appears on screen. She's a total badass. She's also like this tragic character. Remember the Sorrow from a moment ago? Well, she's the mother to his child, and the one that killed him. The boss draws you in with her speeches. She has an incredible story, and she's one of, if not the most important characters to exist in the entire Metal Gear universe. I love that throughout the game, she was doing exactly what she was told to do. Meanwhile, she still tries to give Snake an important lesson, one that no doubt helped shape his character arc throughout this entire series. What's scary is how true her words are, though. You know, the ones about how enemies change via the times, and today's allies are tomorrow's bad guys. And also, she has a very poetic ending. I think what's sad is that the person who had been tasked to kill her had to be the closest thing to a son she'd ever get. She was a true patriot in the end, dying for what she believes in, while the world sees her as a traitor. Also, that ending monologue with Snake saluting the grave chokes me up every single time. The gameplay. So, this is a stealth action game. There are many mechanics and things you can do while silently snooping around the jungle. I feel like I should get the more boring stuff out of the way. So we're going to start with the menus. Start and select are important aspects to this game. It's how you call people using the codec, and it's how you dress yourself, how you heal yourself, and how you feed yourself. Sounds complicated, but it's rather simple. Snake has 2 meters, health and stamina. When his stamina is low, you need to eat something. This can be done via hunting for food or finding rations or other food items. Another important aspect you should be decent at is healing yourself. Sometimes you'll get a cut or burned or shot on the toe, you know, life-threatening ailments. So you need to heal yourself. Some animals can poison you, and you can even eat rotten food and need Pepto. Relatable. Most important thing though is camouflage. You're going to need to change your camo quite a bit throughout this game. You have the options to change Snake's face paint and his actual clothes. The codec allows you to speak with Snake's off-site partners. They give hints, talk about weapons, food, and healing, and when you save with Paramedic, she even talks to you about movies. It's good world building, and they even let you in on the bosses or the environment. It's a neat mechanic. Snake can do many things. He can run, crouch, and crawl. Generally, the slower you move, the less noise you make. Keep that in mind. Also, if you're still and lying low, the enemy won't see you as easily. You know if an enemy can see you easily depending on the camo index number in the upper right hand corner of the HUD. Depending on what weapon you're holding, you can even perform CQC maneuvers. The most useful one for me is the throw. But you can hold enemies, interrogate them, slit their throats, hold enemies up, make them dance for suppressors and ammo. You can even hang off a branch and shoot from it. There are a lot of things you can do in this. I'm sure I didn't even come close to half of it. For a game that came out in 2004, this was very innovative for the time. Visual design. This game is still beautiful. They didn't really change much in the HD version of the original PS2 release either. I mean, it's just brighter and there are slightly more textures added, but that's about it. I love the designs for every character. I love the looks for some of the camos you get too. I have experienced a little frame rate drops though, but I'm not sure if that's just because of the way I recorded footage or not entirely sure. It wasn't doing anything gameplay wise either, so it's not really that big a deal. Also, this game had minor graphical glitches that occurred during like cutscenes, but I didn't really notice them until I was editing, so it's not really that big a deal either. Audio design. This game has fantastic audio design. The diegetic and non-diegetic sounds are amazing. Everything from the bug noises you hear in the jungle to the singing ladder all work wonderfully, and they really help you feel immersed in the game. You even have noise triggers that play when certain things occur, such as a suppressor breaking or getting bit by a leech. And this fucking soundtrack. Norihiko, Hibino, and Harry Gregson Williams composed a phenomenal score for this game. Everything from the main theme to the alert music, even the surfer song that plays on the radio in that one cutscene is amazing. Of course, I can't talk about the music without addressing the elephant in the room. Cynthia Harrell gives her vocal talents to the Snake Eater song. That song itself lends this game a 007 feel. I mean, it's accurate for a time period at least, you know. And I won't lie to you guys, every once in a while I'll start singing that song to myself. I love that song, man. Star Sailor's Way to Fall is the ending song that plays during the credits, and that song is delightfully sad. And it just wraps the whole ending up so beautifully. Also, I love that song too. I love that song to death, man. The other song that plays during the credits is Don't Be Afraid, performed by Eliza Fiorillo. That's a nice calm song, I like it. Let's move on to the content. This game has a lot of content in it. The version I played, which came in the Legacy Collection, does not have all the content. I believe the definitive version to get is Subsistence for the PS2. The prices I saw weren't too bad used, but if you like buying old games new, get ready to shell out around $75 to $100. So this version of the game came with the demo trailer, which is pretty much every cutscene in the game, and it allows you to change the camo within it if you want. There's also tutorial menus, which teach you how to do different maneuvers, and it's where I'd recommend you learn how to do the more complex techniques like pressing R3 to change the style of camera. There are 6 difficulties, the hardest being European Extreme, in which you fail instantly if you're spotted. So don't do that. Be like me, never be seen.
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
Now, for the content that was in the other versions of the game. For instance, in Subsistence, there was a Metal Gear Online add-ons. It also had 2 discs called Subsistence and Persistence. The second disc had Metal Gear Online, whose servers were shut down back in 2007. It also has a duel mode in which you were able to fight all the bosses, and the feature almost set was not brought back. It was a Snake vs. Monkeys mode. It was a crossover with Ape Escape of all things, so that's fucking awesome. Oh, speaking of Ape Escape, in Ape Escape 3, there is a Metal Gear crossover in which you get to play as Peepo Snake and play a similar game to Metal Gear. I think that's about it. I mean, there is a movie, but that's just a cutscene viewer for those who couldn't beat the game, and it only came in the stupidly overpriced limited edition version of Subsistence. It was like on a third disc called Existence, but that's all I could really find about it. Conclusion. If you couldn't tell by now, I fucking adore this game. Kojima wrote and directed this masterpiece, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned that yet. I thank him for this series, I really do. This game made me really think. It's an amazing game. This version of the game gets a 9 out of 10. If I were to get Subsistence, I'm sure hands down the game would get a 10 out of 10. If this version came out with all the content, then it too would have received a 10, but without all the content, I don't think it deserves the perfect. If you haven't played it, get it, it's worth it. Subsistence is the best version, but if you don't care about all the content, the Legacy Collection is worth it too, considering it comes with every Metal Gear game up until Peace Walker. Well anyway, I'll see you guys for the next game.